Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sangeeta, Assistant Professor, School of Management, Maharaja Agrasen University, Baddi. Today, we'll discuss the Keynesian theory of employment. As we know, we can divide the theory of employment into two parts. Let's take a look. Theory of employment. One is classical theory of employment. Another one is Keynesian theory of employment. As we know, we have two groups of economists. One is classical economist and another is modern economist. So classical theory of employment was given by the classical economist, and the Keynesian theory was given by J.M. Keynes. J.M. Keynes, who was a British economist and philosopher. In his book in 1936, in 1936, The Journal Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, he explained that after World War and the Great Depression, what was the reason of unemployment? He stated that the standard of national income is depend upon the level of employment, and they are closely related, the national income and the level of employment. And where is the equilibrium level of income and employment? Where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. He explained that the reason of unemployment was the shortage of aggregate demand, and the shortage of aggregate demand can be removed by the investment in the short term period. According to him, the main reason of unemployment is the deficiency of aggregate demand, and aggregate demand can be increased by increasing investment as consumption remains constant in short term period. So during the depression period, the expectation of profit is remote. That is why private sector will not make any investment, and hence to achieve this objective, full employment objective investment by government will be called. So let us discuss the assumption of this theory. First one is, it has been assumed that the period taken is short run. He already explained in his book that the period, short run period, the situations are dynamic. In the short run period, the situations are dynamic, and we have to solve the solution problem of unemployment during the short run period only, because in the long run period we all are dead, and dynamic conditions exist in the short run period more. So we have to solve the problem of unemployment, and we will consider for that problem in short run only, because we can solve the problem in the long run very easily. So there is no change in the amount of capital will still stand constant, and there exists perfect competition in the market. Perfect competition in the market means the all the factors for the competition for all the factors of production, finance, labor, entrepreneur skills, wages, rent, and there is no foreign trade. Economy is considered as blocked economy, because there is no import and export in the economy. Whatever produced in the economy in the boundaries is traded, and there is no government interference. Market demand and supply forces balance of the situation in the market, and the propensity to consume is stable. Well, what is propensity to consume? Let me explain. So we can divide the propensity to consume into two parts: APC, average propensity to consume, and marginal propensity to consume. APC is equal to C upon Y, and marginal delta C upon delta Y. That means, for example, if my income, Y stand for income, MC stand for consumption. It means if my income is 1,000 rupees and I am consuming 500 rupees, then my propensity to consume will be 50%. 50%. 50% of my income is consumed by me. That is my propensity to consume. So Keynes explained that the propensity to consume in the short term period is stable, and there should be no change in the methods of production. Technique of production is stable. We do not change any technique of production during this time period. There should be no change in the distribution of wealth distribution among different sectors like private, primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. And saving is the function of income. We can write this function as saving is the function of income. S here means saving and Y is income. That means how much we are saving is totally depend upon the income level of any particular individual. And labor is the only factor of production. Labor is the most important factor of production. Without him, production cannot be happen. And investment is function of rate of interest. Investment, I stand for investment, is the function of rate of interest. Rate of interest means borrowing rate. If the rate of interest is higher, then the investment will be low. If the rate of interest is lower than the rate higher side, then investment will be low. If rate of interest is low, investment will be on higher side and vice versa. So Keynes explained the assumption. According to him, the economy play in according to that assumptions or these assumptions. So now we explain this theory. So Keynes described that national income is the function of level of employment. Here Y is the function of N. Explain that national income is the function of level of employment. Income, function of level of employment. Here you can see. And further, level of employment. N is the function of ED. ED, ED means effective demand. Effective demand means where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Means aggregate demand in the economy is equal to aggregate supply. Okay, so effective demand is the main factor here. Level of employment in the economy depends upon the effective demand. Keynes explains this concept through a flow chart. First is national income employment depends upon the effective demand. Further, it is depend upon the aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Further, aggregate demand depends upon consumption and investment. Consumption depends upon propensity to consume and national income. Consumption how much portion of our income we are consuming depends upon our propensity to consume. As I already told you, what is propensity to consume? Whatever we consume from our level of income is called propensity to consume portion, that portion basically. And national income, national total national income, we can find out the per capita income from the national income. So aggregate demand depends upon the consumption and further upon these two factors. Further, investment, aggregate demand can be created by the investment, and investment further depends upon the marginal efficiency of capital and rate of interest. And here aggregate supply depends upon the factor cost. Factor cost means the factor variables of production, like rent. We are paying rent for our land, we are using land for machinery or plant, then we pay the rent for the land, and we pay wages to the labor, profit to the entrepreneur, and interest to the capital. That all are factor cost. And the normal price, and the normal price of goods and services that exist in the economy. So here is aggregate supply. AS stand for aggregate supply is equal to Y. Y means level of income, is also the function, is also divide, income is divided into consumption and saving. Sum of consumption and saving is equal to our income level. Further aggregate demand include C plus I. C for consumption and I for investment. Either we consume or either we invest. Consumption expenditure further depends upon the size of national income. In other words, consumers propensity to consume and average propensity to consume. Here APC is average propensity to consume, which is C upon Y, consumption upon income level. And investment expenditure further depends upon the two factor, marginal efficiency of capital and current rate of interest. Marginal efficiency of capital is lower than the rate of interest, the demand for investment will be low. And the aggregate demand curve rises upward from the left to right. And effective demand, according to Keynes, the level of income and employment is determined at a point there aggregate demand curve intersect aggregate supply curve. We can understand this flow chart with the help of this one simple example. In the first column, we have employment in lakhs, second column, aggregate demand in crore, and aggregate supply and trend of employment. Last column. First, see here, employment is zero, but still there is demand because we cannot create negative or zero demand. There is always demand for goods and services, and aggregate supply can be zero. At this level, we employ, to meet up this demand of 100 crore, we will hire employees. So the trend of employment will be rising, and we employ 10 lakh people, then the demand will increase by 360, but this supply does not match the still not match the aggregate demand. So we'll continue the hiring people, and at this point where 50 lakh employment, then our demand is equal to our supply, that is equilibrium point. At this point we have aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, so we can hire only 50 lakh people, and above this cannot hire the another people. So here the trend will change, here the demand will fall, trend of employment will fall. That is how it's work. Next is the diagram of the concept. On O axis we have employment trend, and OY axis we have expenditure. AD is our aggregate demand and AS is our aggregate supply. Where these two lines intersect, it is the effective demand. Effective demand is where aggregate supply and aggregate demand meet up. At E point, here is the price setup for the commodities. You can see the equilibrium level. If my demand is at F point, it is full employment. If I change the level of demand, for example, my demand curve shift from AD1 to AD, here it cuts the aggregate supply here. It is cut the aggregate supply here. That means there is underemployment. And if the demand moves up, then supply is still constant. At this point, there will be overemployment. So there are situations of underemployment and overemployment also. Keynes proved that there is not always full employment in the economy, but there can be overemployment and an underemployment situation in the economy. Next comes the significance of Keynesian theory of employment. First one is theoretical significance, revival of macroeconomic. So in classical theory, the economists consider only microeconomic principle, but Keynes explains all the concepts like we can say aggregate demand, national income consumption, employment in aggregate level. So it revives the macroeconomics in that area. Next, it is a monetary theory. Monetary theory means Keynes explained that saving is the function of income and rate investment is the also function of rate of interest, which is monetary phenomena. That is why he depend upon more monetary factor rather than the real factors. Next is psychological law of consumption. This theory is based on the psychological law of consumption. This law states that whenever our income increase, our consumption also increases, but not in the same proportion. Consumption increase in the consumption is less than the increase in income. Next is the practical significance of Keynesian theory. Not only the theoretical significance, Keynes has only another practical significance of theory also. First one is government interference. According to Keynes, achievement of the objective of full employment is not possible without government intervention. So under any circumstances, government interferes in the economic sector like in crisis and in a war situation, government interfere in the interest of people and economy. Next is social accounting, refers to the country's income expenditure accounting. On the basis of such accounting, government formulates economic policies and accounting was made clear by the Keynes. Next comes the fiscal policy. So Keynes has given much importance to fiscal policy with reference to full employment. According to him, public works program proved to be quite helpful in removing unemployment and depression situation in the economy. And next is the deficit financing, and government can meet budgetary deficit in many ways, like by borrowing from the banks or printing new currencies, notes. As a result of deficit financing, aggregate demand increases and also increase output and employment. Next one is the significance of investment. According to him, in short run consumption expenditure remain stable. So in the short run period, to increase the aggregate demand, we have to increase the investment also. Full employment. Because of Keynesian economic approach, policy of full employment has become the major policy of almost all countries. All the economies, whether planned or unplanned, treat full employment as the most desirable objective of economic policy. Next significance is national income. Keynes has stressed the practical importance of the study of national income. He has propounded a new concept of net national income that can be arrived at by deducting user cost or supplementary cost from the original national product. He also introduced the wage policy, real wage policy. Keynes believed that the reduced unemployment and to reduce the unemployment and to increase employment opportunity, it was essential to reduce real wages. With a view of reducing real wages, Keynes suggested increase in price level. When the wage level will goes down, the purchasing power of people will goes down and the prices will goes down, and this will create the demand further in circular form. Next comes the criticism of Keynesian theory of employment. First one is the concept of equilibrium is self-contradictory. Keynes state that equilibrium point is where the aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. But further, he explained that there can be underemployment and overemployment. So this point is still contradictory in his theory. Next is Keynes' economic analysis is mainly a static analysis. Keynes told that the equilibrium point is where the aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, but he doesn't state that how and what way of investment undergoes a change. Next is Keynesian theory is a short-run economic analysis, having no concern with the long-term period. He considered only short-term period and not a long-term period. Next is Keynesian economics is based on the unrealistic assumption of perfect market competition. We can say that in real situation, no such perfect competition exists. So this is a unrealistic assumption. Next is Keynesian theory of employment is not a journal theory because it does not pay heed to technical unemployment, or its application is confined to the rich countries because it is not applicable in the all developing or underdeveloped economies. Only it is only for the developed countries like England and America. Next is Keynesian theory of employment is based on the unrealistic assumption of closed economy. Closed economy is where no import and no export. But to increase the aggregate demand, we have to import or export the thing. Next, there is lack of principle of acceleration. Keynes introduced the concept of multiplier, but it is based on the marginal propensity to consume. But acceleration effect state that due to increase in the consumption, there is many times more increase in the production of capital goods. So he confined to only limited part of the acceleration effect, but doesn't state how much time it will take to multiply the income from production. Next is Keynesian theory seeks solution to the problem of depression and unemployment alone. But what about the another problems like inflation or business cycle variations in the economy? Next, Keynes asserted that the rate of interest was purely a monetary phenomena, but in real sense, it is influenced by both by the real or monetary factors. Next is Keynes was the firm view that the rich and developed countries have generally subject to secular stagnation, but in reality, these secular they suffer from secular inflation rather than the secular stagnation. Lastly, Keynes explained the demand pull inflation in his theory but has completely ignored the cost pull inflation. Keynes focused upon to improve the aggregate demand, but he completely ignored the cost push inflation theory, which can help the economy in cutting down the inflation or creating the or suggesting the rightful monetary policy or fiscal policies. So he ignored that cost push inflation concept in his theory. Next is the difference between Keynes or classical theory of employment. So, first one is the concept of employment. According to Keynes, involuntary employment, unemployment person is one who is willing to work at less than existing rate of real wages, who don't have any work and agree to work at less than existing rate of work. But in classical theory, an involuntary unemployment person is one who is willing to work at the existing rate of money but does not get any work. Next, Keynes explain the saving is function of income and investment is the function of rate of interest. So saving and investment can be equal by changing the level of income only, but in the classical theory, saving and investment is the both are function of rate of interest. That is why saving is also equal to investment. Next is adjustment of price and output. Since less than full employment is the normal condition of economy in the Keynes theory, so due to change in the aggregate demand, change in aggregate production will be quicker than the change in price. First production will change, then the price will change. But in the classical theory, we can say that in full employment is the normal situation. So here price will change quicker than the change in output. Next is the cut in money wages. Keynes believed that reduction in money wages was likely to cause fall in effective demand. So cut in real wages by raising price level is preferred. And full employment could be achieved by lowering the money wages in classical theory. Next is the necessity of state interference. According to him, in the Keynesian theory, Keynes state that market forces, demand and supply forces cannot balance the economy as a whole. Government need to interfere between the economic activities. And according to classical theory, there is no need of government interference. Market is free, automatic. And saving is social wise. Keynes treated saving as social wise. To increase in employment, spending should be given through more than the saving. And in classical theory, they treated saving as the private and social virtue. According to them, saving was the basis of capital formation. Next is the dynamic. Expectation rendered Keynesian theory dynamic to some extent, but in classical economies, no significance for the study of expectation. The expectation plays an important role in determining only marginal efficiency of capital, in turns determine the level of employment. Next, practical significance. Keynes theories are more significant in practical terms. While classical economies has contributed little in solving the practical problems like unemployment, inflation, etc. And the models specified by these two theories are classical economists framed a model in which money is the preference for liquidity and why income is the function of level of employment. NS is level of saving depends function of real wage rate W upon P, wage is divided by price, and ND aggregate demand is also the function of real wages, saving is the function of rate of interest, investment is the function of rated investment, rate of interest, and saving is equal to investment. Wherein Keynesian theory, money is the function of liquidity preference plus rate of it is also depends upon the bond rate, and income is the function of level of employment, level of total supply, aggregate supply is the function of money wages, whereas aggregate demand is the function of real wages, saving is the function of income, and investment is the function of rate of interest, and saving is equal to investment. What is the difference? Here, classical theory depends upon the real wages, whereas Keynesian theory depends upon the money wages. That's all. Thank you. Have a good day.